Mandukya Karika. Om Badram Karne Bhishnuyam Deva Badram Pashe Makshabhirya Jatra Sthirairangaye Stustuvagam Sastanubhi Vyashema Devahitam Yadayuhu Swasti na Indro Vriddhashrava Swasti na Pusha Vishwaveda Swasti nastakshyo Haristanemi Swasti no Brihaspatir Dadatu Om Shanti 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 Hari Om. So we covered Mandukya Karika, some of the mantras, and very importantly, Karika number 5, where beautifully it says, Trishu dhamsu yad bhojyam bhokta yascha prakirtitah vedait ubhayam yastu sa bhunjano nalipyate. What is the way to freedom? Way to freedom is, once you have understood your 3 states, waking, dream, dreamless, you will know that you are constant. Everything else is variable. You alone are eternal amidst the changing scenes. That way you will not be affected by it, nor will you get attached to it, to any of these states. What happens at the individual level, that is the 3 states of existence, they come and go. Something similar happens at the state of cosmic creation. The Upanishads are not a simplistic scripture. By simplistic scripture, we mean, the general idea about, say, even Hindu religion. There is God, God is looking after us, and after death, He will take us somewhere, etc., etc. No, it doesn't go that way. It takes you to such depths that your mind goes blank. Starting Karika number 6, there is no discussion on creation. What is creation? It's very interesting. We had hinted at it. Now, if you look at philosophy and the philosophical systems of the world, those of you who are a bit interested in all this, you'll know that as an outsider to philosophy, we are curious to know who we are, where from we have come. And those who are insiders of philosophy, they know that every system of philosophy has to address this question: who I am, where from have I come? Be it science, be it speculative philosophy, be it realistic philosophy, be it religion, if it dares to call itself a system of thought, it has to say how this creation took place. Because after all, I was not here before I was born. I will not be here once I am dead. Something comes out, something blooms. My life bloomed the day I was born. And considering the fact that everyone who is born dies, one day I will be gone. You have to explain it. And you have to explain creation even at the cosmological level. Whatever happens at the individual happens at the cosmological level too. Just to remind you of what we have discussed till now, that three states, it shows how if you understand that you are constant, then you will not be attached to anything. This same will apply to the cosmos too. The real I of the cosmos cannot be responsible for whatever is happening, because at the individual level it was said that it's mind that goes on creating all this. Atman, you are in no way responsible for it, the true I. Similarly, Brahman is in no way connected with whatever is going on in this cosmos. When they were describing these three states, it was not that they were just giving out some gems. The purpose is to take us to great heights. Now, while discussing this theory of creation, and as we mentioned, every philosophy has to. Now, there are many religious systems, and most of them have mythologies of creation. There is a beautiful story about once Bertrand Russell, when he was pretty young, he was a philosopher and he was delivering a talk on idea of creation. So there was an elderly lady, I think she was a Protestant, and Bertrand Russell gave a beautiful talk. And then that lady got up and said, "Young man, whatever you said sounds good. But the fact is, I don't agree with you. This earth rests on a tortoise." And then Bertrand Russell, he was a very intelligent person, he asks, "And may I ask you, madam, where that tortoise rests?" That lady said, "I see you are a clever young man. Well, it is tortoise all the way down. So the tortoise rests on a tortoise, which rests again on a tortoise, which rests again on a tortoise." It just goes on. These mythological concepts are okay as far as mythologies are concerned. But serious minds will not accept all this. So how the scientists looked at it? First, whenever we think of science, we have to go back to Greek thinkers. Now, when we go to Greek thinkers, apart from their mythologies, they some of those philosophers, most important of them, Thales. These philosophers came up with the idea that it is one single atom from which everything else slowly comes out. And Thales was he was of the opinion that it's water. Everything comes out of water, from water molecule. Later philosophers, they added three more elements. But mind it, in Indian system, we have five: Akash, Vayu, etc. But the concept of the Greek thinkers was different from what the Indians had. So once they moved to four elements, somehow it was seen that it was not satisfactory. Then there was Pythagoras, and there came Plato, and they believed that everything is about numbers. And the famous term is uh, Platonic solids. They came up with a term. Everything is about numbers. Then came Democritus, so one of the leading philosophers. He came up with the idea that invisible atoms, and they are moving through a void. But then there was Aristotle, he opposed that idea. I'm just giving you a brief, very short overview. Those of you who are interested can look up in books. Remember that famous Michelson-Morley experiment where he tried to find whether or not the speed of light is affected by all these theories. Then it came out that no, speed of light is always constant. Then came Parmenides, another Greek philosopher, who said all the changes that we see, this is illusion. And there is a true underlying reality which never undergoes any change. Sorry, I've got a nasty cold. So that's how the Greek philosophers saw. And then came science, the evolved science, as we know. You find two very important things in science. One is the present day Big Bang black hole theory. Now, we are not going into the details of that. In short, it's all about energy and matter. Particularly after Einstein came and quantum physics came, everything is about energy, matter, etc. And as far as life itself is concerned, they don't have any answer where from the life comes. And they're talking about consciousness, by which they mean sentience, mind. And then there was Darwin, who came up with his revolutionary idea of evolution, which is not accepted even today by many American states. Recently, I heard that there was some judgment by Supreme Court or something where they're saying, no, you have to accept. You know, in India, we have accepted Darwin's theory of evolution long ago. So, now when you look at science, this is not everything. Because I'm just giving you a, that's not our purpose. There are some scientists who believe in disconnected universe, collectively known as multiverses. And that way, they try to define the universe in an entirely different way. Then there are people who believe in naturalism, so thinkers. They believe that only natural laws, they are enough to explain this universe. So these are the broad ideas. When it comes to religion, religions can be classified into different categories. First of that is animism. You find the practice of animism even today, particularly in Japan, where you believe that non-human things, they have some divine origin or there is divinity. So that way you find that animals, plants, etc. So other objects of this natural world, they have divinity in them. Very often people confuse the practices of Hindu religion as animism, but no, Hindu practices are not animism. Then there is totemism. Totemism. They believe that there is a divine connection between human and other beings. So naturally, their ideas of creation will change. But most interesting is polytheism. In polytheism, you find that people worship many gods, which is idolatry. Hinduism is not polytheistic. So they may or may not believe in a supreme God. Now, this supreme God, whosoever is, he is devoid of all kinds of bias, generally in polytheism. And he is unconcerned with the mundane desires, cares, etc. Then we have dualists. Dualists succeed in explaining evil, why there is evil in the world. But they cannot explain why there is order in the universe. If there is good force and there is bad force, how come there is an order? They are not able to explain. I'm mentioning these things just in short to give you an idea, because main thing will come later. And then comes the most popular, monotheistic, the Abrahamic religions, monotheistic. They believe that God is one. According to them, God is one. And that explains order in the world, because dualists cannot explain order in the world. For example, our Sankhya and Yoga, they are dualists. They believe that there is matter and there is consciousness. They somehow come together. But how they come together, how that order comes, they have no answer. But the moment you accept monotheism as true, with my due apologies to listeners from Abrahamic religions, they cannot explain evil. That is, God is just, God is caring, loving. Where from comes the evil? Ultimately, you find when you analyze threadware, you find monotheistic religions, they are they are kind of a medley. It's a combination of strange combination of first monotheism, because there is one God, and they believe in animism because they believe in ghosts, etc. Jinns. They believe in all those things. And they're also dualists because they believe in heaven and hell. When you say eternal heaven, eternal hell, whatever the term you might use, ultimately you are becoming dualist without even knowing it. All those things are brought under one umbrella. Naturally, when they explain creation, they explain whatever suits them. Now, when you come to Christianity, which has really come up with lots of theories on creation, the most important for them is creationism. It's a term according to which God creates beings according to his will, because his will is all power. And then people came up with the idea of intelligent design. According to intelligent design, you find that there are features in this world, in this natural world, which can be explained as someone, they said, God is like a great watchmaker, intelligent design. And there is a theistic evolution. So there is Darwin's evolution, here is theistic evolution, according to which God designs a universe. He designs a universe in which everything evolves naturally. I'm not sure what exactly you conclude of all these discussions. One thing that you can conclude, that they come up with an explanation that will suit their philosophical outlook. When you come to India, India also has its fair share of theories of creation. Most important is Kanad, Vaishesik, who came up with Anu, is kind of an atomist. But atomism of Kanad is different from atomism of, say, the Greek philosophers. Because in Greek philosophy, the atoms are insentient. But here, these atoms are created by God. So they are powered by God. But there is difference. Then we have theories from Sankhya, according to which you have energy, there is Prakriti, and there is consciousness. And then we have many theories in Vedanta. We need not go into all that, because we will now come back to Karika, where all these things will now be taken up. Because essentially, the discussion that we are going to have starting Karika 6 is about how creation comes from the conscious principle. Why conscious principle? Because When we were discussing Vishwa Tejas Pragya, I'll request my dear listeners never to forget our earlier talks because that will keep coming repeatedly. That reminds me of a very interesting story from Mark Twain's life before Mark Twain became a famous writer. There was a time as a young man, he had become kind of an apprentice on one of those boats, steamboats. I think they were known as CUB, the apprentices. So at night, he was on his first journey, and there was that captain under whom he was learning. So the captain went on telling quarter mark, half mark, like that. And suddenly he said, Mark Twain. So how much of water is there depth? After they had traveled for maybe 2, 3, 4 hours, see, I had read it long ago. I don't remember the details. Suddenly the captain asked, so tell me, what is the depth of that spot? So Mark Twain says, well, I don't know. What do you mean by I don't know? What do you think I told you all this for? So Mark Twain said, I thought you were passing time. You were entertaining me. And just to pass time, you were talking. And the captain becomes so furious. And next time you forget anything, I'm going to throw you in the river. I think it was Mississippi River. Whatever discussion was there, it was not for entertainment. It was not mere discussion. They have a direct bearing on what we are going to discuss. At the individual level, it was shown how the three states keep changing, but there is a conscious principle. So, Upanishads will never go into theories like what we believe in science today, creation coming out of energy. No way. Upanishads will always talk about creation coming out from sentience, Chaitanya. What might be the theories coming out of sentience? प्रभु सर्वभावानां सतामिति विनिश्चयः सर्वं जनयति प्राण चेतोन अंशुन पुरुषः पृथक. So we now begin Karika, and starting from Karika 6 up to 9, these four, they will be discussing various theories of creation which are related to the divine conscious principle. This Karika number 6 says, Praha sarva bhavanam satamiti vinishaya. If the object is real, then its cause has to be real. Simple reasoning. If the object is unreal, the cause has to be unreal. Its simplicity and elegance, they are both of very high level. Prasarvabhavanam sathamiti vinishaya. Only those objects come into existence which truly exist. If they don't exist, they will not come into existence. Na sato vidyate bhavo, na bhavo vidyate satha Gita. Gita beautifully says. If you are interested, we have talks on Gita there, you can listen to them. So how does creation take place? How things evolve? So those who consider Brahman as the cause, we find this description repeatedly in the Upanishads, where Brahman is the cause, everything evolves from the Brahman. If everything evolves from Brahman, what exactly happens is that It's Brahman itself which becomes prana, the force, the creative force. And this creative force now appears as insentient, things that lack consciousness. And that Brahman is there as sentience. So the idea is that there is a creation, but everything is Brahman. So it's not really creation, it's a manifestation. When you have gold, you make ornaments out of gold. It's not really creation, it is manifestation. Creation means there was something and you created something out of it, absolutely something different. So, creation, actually, every time we use the word creation, it implies it was a non existent thing and it came into existence. Vedanta differs from every other system of thought exactly here. And it will say that if it did not exist in the beginning, it can never come into existence. Because it existed, that is how it has come. What existed? Brahman. So, what is coming out? Brahman. There is nothing else other than Brahman. How come then this pen? You mean to say this pen is Brahman? Yes, in the form of prana, which appears as energy. There's nothing else. So, two theories are here, basically mentioned first. First, those who believe that creation is an illusion, everything is illusory, this Karika contradicts that. It's not an illusion. At the same time, there is no causal relation. The term is very, very, very important. Those of you who are serious students of Mandukya Karika, please keep this in mind because we will be needing it as we proceed. There is no causal relation. See, normally we talk about karma. As you sow, so you reap. Mandukya Karika will just blast it away. There is no causal relationship between creation and Brahman. Because Brahman, by its power, now appears as prana, the cosmic energy. So prana and Brahman, they are not different. So there is manifestation. Now, there is manifestation. There is no doubt that creation is here. So you cannot say that creation doesn't exist. But creation does not exist in the sense that these have an independent reality. So this microphone that you can see, this microphone does not have an independent reality beyond Brahman. So creation actually does not exist in the sense that we understand that we created something. The normal meaning of creation, as we mentioned, that God creates out of nothing. No, it's not. It cannot be. This is what this Karika means to say. Why? Acharya Shankara explains, he says, there's a famous example they use, son of a barren woman. If you have a barren woman, it cannot have a son. So this creation that we see all around us, it is not a non-existent thing. Brahman associated with Maya functions as prana. Same Brahman associated with Maya. What is Maya? Something which we really do not understand. That discussion will be going on, and that is why they discussed the three states. This is the cause of the universe. It is seen that real is always born of real. Real is born of real. And that way, real is connected with the real. So, since the world is seen as real, we are seeing this world as real. So, it must be born of someone real. That means the Buddhistic concept of coming out from shunya, everything is shunya, is not accepted. It says, son of a barren woman. It's neither seen as real nor they are seen as imaginary. That means if world is seen as imaginary, if you say that world is a dream, some Buddhistic systems have this thought, then Brahman too becomes imaginary. That which is appearing to me as real, if that is imaginary, then Brahman too becomes imaginary. In reality, Brahman is beyond the grasp of mind. This is where Vedanta differs from every other system of thought, but can be inferred. You can infer it by the effect of the form of the universe. What about false perception? Says yes, there can be false perception. You may mistake something for something else, but there has to be some substratum. What substratum? Substratum on which you are making this mistake. For example, there is mirage. If you are seeing mirage, you are seeing water in desert. Desert has to exist, and you must have knowledge of water prior to your seeing this mirage. So ultimately, there is this Jada Chaitanya. So all these explanations go on. The bottom line is that there is not a it's not a causal relation. You say that Brahman caused something to come out which is kind of different from it. No. Whatever is Brahman. Brahman alone has become everything. So, through this, it also shows that the three states of Vishwa, Tejas, Pragya, associated with names and forms, that is, waking state, dream state, and dreamless state, they are all the results of Maya. It is that one same thing because of the divine power appearing as different. This is what Karika number 6 says, Pra Sarva Bhavanam. Only those objects appear, only those objects get manifested which truly exist. Brahman alone exists. So what comes before us is Brahman. It's prana, prana, which manifests as all inanimate things. And Purusha, the conscious Brahman, it manifests the conscious beings in their manifold forms. So Acharya Shankara, he quotes from different Upanishads. Like we have this in Mundak Upanishad, Yathoda Navi Sijate Girnate Cha. The bottom line is, just to understand that this Karika explains two things. First, do not think that creation is non-existent. At the same time, there is no causal relation. That means it's not creation, it is manifestation. Those of you who have been listening to our Inspired Talks by Swami Vivekananda series, there Swamiji is repeatedly talking about this. It's manifestation, manifestation. It's not creation. But our mind says that we cannot really get out of this. This too will be discussed. From there, we move on to verse number 7. In verse number 7 and 8, they give cosmological arguments regarding God's existence. These arguments are used by different systems of thought. These different systems of thought, creation coming from God, can be broadly classified into 4. These are known as cosmological. First is, creation is manifestation of divine power. This God, it's his divine power. It's manifestation of divine power. Second is creation is an illusion conjured up by God. God creates this illusion of creation. Third is it's God's will, and hence it has to be real. This third one and the first one, they're slightly different. The third one is about monotheistic God or simply theistic God. Fourth is there are certain schools of thought who believe that it's all product of time, Kala. Intelligent design was mentioned. We have this concept in the Western world. It's something like that. Whole thing continues. Time is the ultimate mover of everything. These are the four fundamental things that will be discussed in Karika number 7 and Karika number 8. It's about creation as manifestation of power by God, creation as an illusion conjured up by God. Third is God's will and hence real. And last is God is indifferent, Kala, as we find in systems of Shakti, where Mother Kali is there and she is doing everything. So this discussion will be Vibhutim Prasubam Tvanye Manyate Shishti Chintaka Swapnamaya Sarupeti Shishtir Anyer Vikalpita. There are people, Karika is narrating. The first one was about creation coming out of Brahman. This one is they contemplate process of creation as manifestation of God's powers. And the others imagine it to be like dream, like illusion. So this Karika is about personal God. And hence this is known as theistic theory of creation. Here we find two very important things. First, creation is real, but is God's power. And second is, creation is an illusion. In either case, Acharya Shankar asserts, why worry about creation? Why pay attention to creation? Once you have known that God alone is true, rather go for God. Why worry about creation? And if you have known that it's an illusion, the problem is that even those who believe that this is an illusion conjured up by God, they go in great details to explain how this creation took place. The goal of the Upanishads is one and only one, to make you realize that Atman is Brahman. Why bother about creation if these be your theories? So here we'll just see what Acharya says. That says Swapna Maya Sarupeti. Creation is partly like dream. Creation is partly Maya, illusion. Shankara says, Natu Paramartha Chintakanam Sishtavadar Ityarthaha. Those who really want to go for God realization, those who want to have spiritual realization, why should they bother about this? They don't have respect, they don't have any intention of applying their mind to these things. And then he quotes famous mantra from the Vedas, Indra Mayabhi Pururupiyate. Indra conjures up many forms by the power of his Maya. Says people who are extremely extrovert, people who are not indrawn, people who are not contemplative. Only those people will go to try to find out what creation is based on this theory. He's not talking about every theory. You know why? Then he talks about the famous rope trick. Those of you who are interested in magic, particularly Indian magic, would know that it's a very famous trick in which the juggler used to throw a rope up and he used to climb up. Now, there are many theories about it because there was a time when I was deeply interested in Indian magic, trying to understand what it was. So I got some books and I studied quite a few books. And there are conflicting reports. Some said that there used to be elaborate arrangements. Some used to say no, there was some kind of power involved. But in general, even in India, they believe that it was it was some kind of illusion that was created. And the term Indro Mayabhi Pururup Iyate. Indra creates this illusion. So magic in India is known as Indrajal, the net of Indra. And then he says, and literally, how Acharya Shankara knew about these things, I don't know. He says that this conjurer throws rope up and takes up his weapon and climbs up that rope. And from there, you can hear war cries, and his body falls from there, different parts. And then one sees again that that person has got up. Later on, many people try to emulate this, but this rope trick, famous rope trick, it could never be successfully performed in recent times. I mean, last 100, years. Acharya says in his commentary, this dreamless state, this dream state, they are just like the rope thrown up by the conjurer. They don't have any existence. They don't have any real existence. In the previous class where we had ended, we had mentioned this, that if you can think deeply that you alone are true, the states are continuously changing, you will never be you will never get attached to those states. Acharya, whenever I use the word Acharya, I'll mean Shankaracharya. He goes one step further and says, these states are exactly like the rope thrown up by the magician in the famous rope trick. Who is the magician? You are the magician. You create your own dreams. You create your dreamless state. Worse, you create your waking state. In Swami Vivekananda's Inspired Talks, we come across this famous sentence where he says that we create our stories. Our waking state is a story. Just like dream, in dream we keep on weaving stories. Just like that, waking state is also weaving of stories. So Tejas Pragya. There was Vishwa Tejas Pragya. These states, they have just been conjured up by you. The real magician is beyond all this. And You cannot see him, the real magician. What you see is magic. And you're so enamored by the magic, you forget that magician alone is true. Magic is not. We are so enamored by our states, waking, dreamless, that we forget that the real magician is you, the Atman. Who is that Atman? Turiya, about which once this discussion on creation is over, we'll go to that famous Nanta Pragyam, Na Bahis Pragyam. If everything is an illusion, why bother about it? Why even worry about it? It says, Mumukshanam Aryanam na nisprayojanayam shishtadar ityata. If you are a, if you are really interested in spirituality, if you are mokshkami, you want moksha, then you will not have any interest in these things. Provided your idea of creation is this. What? That everything is an illusion. This is a cosmological creation by God, and creation is an illusion thrown up by God. And we accept that. We have no issues with that. Only thing is that this Atman is throwing up these states. Then comes Karika number 8, which is very interesting. Ichha matram prabhu shrishtir iti shishto vinishchita kalat prasuti bhutanam manyante kala chintaka. There are people who are convinced of the reality of this universe, the reality of the objects. They believe that God creates all this by his mere will. And there are people who believe that everything is because of time, kala. This happens in those who believe in Shakti worship. Is time. So there was a system of thought which evolved from astrology, Jyotish. So they also had a philosophy of their own. In India, this actually we talk about 6 systems of philosophy, but that's not really correct. Those of you who are interested in Indian philosophy, if you study Sarvadarshan Sangraha, you'll find how many different kinds of philosophy are there. So grammarians have their own system of philosophy. Just like that, those who are into astrology, Jyotish, or astronomy, they have a theory of their own, and that's why you'll find these astrologers. Some of them are really good. They'll go on telling on such and such date there will be such and such constellation, and such thing will happen to you, because they believe in that everything is controlled by time. Once I had met a very nice astrologer, and he told me beautifully. He told me that look, I firmly believe that God is the master of everything, but he gets things done through these planets and stars. I liked his argument. I mean, if somebody is consistent about his argument, there is no question in appreciating him. I may not agree with you. That may not be my philosophy. But at least you are consistent about your philosophy. If you talk to kids, you'll find that they are not consistent about their demands, nor they are consistent about what they say. Most people are like these kids. When they grow up, even if they become scientists and thinkers and philosophers, there are inconsistencies in what they say. So, if some gentleman has a very clear and consistent philosophy, at least you should appreciate that. That okay, fine. So they say that God is Satya Sankalpa. There's a beautiful expression in our scripture, Satya Sankalpa. As Bible beautifully says, God says, let there be light, and there was light. It's Satya Sankalpa. He says, let there be light, and there was light. Something similar happens in Valmiki Ramayana, where Sri Ramchandra says, promises his friend Sugriva, okay, fine. Bali is dead, and Bali is dead. There is no force in the world that can save him. Satya Sankalpa. He just wills and it's done. And all these things are summed up in Karika number 9, which is a very, very, very interesting. And I'm, sh- I don't think you will be able to memorize it. It's not really needed, but you need to understand because this ends the discussion on the three states that we had. If creation is real, here we are not discussing manifestation minded, we are discussing creation. This is known as teleological. Teleological. Teleological means there has to be a purpose, having a purpose. There is a very serious problem with Western outlook. In Western outlook, there is this term where they say that in Greek philosophy, which we mentioned earlier, creation is infinite, going on. But the Christian thought process, influenced by Judaism and, of course, later Islam, the whole thing became finite. There's a beginning to the universe. Now, if there is a beginning to the universe and creation is by God, whether it be intelligent, design, this design, that design, creation comes from God. Most importantly, in Christianity, we have creationism, where God created this and that. God created the earth and sun and the moon. There must be some purpose to it. Because this is in human nature to ask why. Fine, there are so many theories of creation. God created in this process. Creation is an illusion, creation is a reality. A creation works out through time. Fine. But why? This is where the Western system of thought somewhere gets somewhere gets a bit materialistic. If God created and God created at some point of time, there must be a purpose. So my life must have a purpose. I must have a purpose in life. Have I found a goal in life? Indian system of thought doesn't run exactly on those principles because ultimately, whatever philosophy, I mean, religious outlook, you find that you are connected with God, and they will say that the only purpose in life is to be one with the source, to be one with God. When we talk about four goals of life, they are known as Purushartha, Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. They say that through all this, you can reach God. In our own times, Gandhiji, when Gandhiji began his political life, he said, I want to see whether or not I can achieve God through politics. So, Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha, these are not the only other ways too, as Gandhiji tried. Gaudapada classifies them into two. Bhogartham srishtirityanye kridartham iti chapare. Devasyesa swabhavoyam apta kamasya kaspriha. Some say that manifestation is for the purpose of God's enjoyment, while others attribute to his diversion. Bhogartham. God wants to enjoy his own creation. Kridartham, divine sport. He creates out of fun. These are different concepts. Like if you look at different religious books, they will ask you, I mean, why creation? And they will answer. The infinite wanted to test itself. Hence this universe. Because to test, one has to become two. So akamayat, he desired. Ekoham bhosyam prajayami. I am one, I'll become many. So that I can enjoy myself. Bhogartham. But sometimes it sounds too crude. They'll say, Kirartham, Leela. It's all play, game. Sri Ramakrishna, he mostly talks about Leela because a devotee will always want to know why this creation, why I'm here. Starting from Karika 6, where it was described that creation is not non existent. It's not, is there a causal relation? But if you try to find a meaning and purpose in life, then Gaudapada says, Devasyesa swabhavoyam. This is a swabhava, the nature. It just goes on. That is the nature of thing. Because apt kamasya kaspriha. Apt kamasya kya kaspriha. Brahman. It is self-fulfilled. It's self-content. God is self-fulfilled, self-content. Kaspriha. How can God have any desire? How can Brahman have any desire? And for that matter, you as Atman, how can you have any desire? Apt kamasya kaspriha. This is one of those rarest of statements that I remember from my first reading of Mandukya Karika way back in 1986, when I was being taught by my great teacher and mentor, Srimad Swami Mokshadanji Maharaj. This is, and I found it so fascinating. Oh my God. Aptakamasya kaspriya. How can the desireless have any desire? Why should he create? Creation always implies multiplicity. And multiplicity will always be name and form. Wherever you see names and forms, you know that there is multiplicity. Creation always means multiplicity. So naturally it is subject to transformation from one state to another. there will be birth, there will be growth, there will be decay, there will be annihilation in the form of death. Gaudapada refutes all these theories, says, Srishti Swabhava. Gita also says, Swabhavastu pravartate. It's in the nature of things. It goes like that. Sri Ramakrishna very beautifully says, there's a snake. Sometimes it sits, sometimes it moves. It is the nature of beings. When it moves, it's a snake. When it sits, it's a snake. There is no purpose in creation. There can never be any purpose in creation. It is the nature of its thing. So, finite creation at some finite moment of time with some purpose is not acceptable to us. Creation itself is Maya. So, all theories that concern creation, every theory of creation is a result of Maya, although we ascribe it to God. Whatever creation is always because of Maya in Vedanta. And he shows through these discussions. In case you have difficulty understanding, you just listen to this talk again and it will become clear. Creation is because of Maya. So all theories of creation have to belong to Maya. But wrongly, it's purely wrongly that we ascribe creation and theories of creation to God. God is in no way connected with any creation. And all these powers and all those things, it is man's desires, my own desires. I have my own desires. There is an astrologer to whom this movement of planets, etc., are all important. So he thinks that creation is because of time. There's a person who worships power. So he feels that it's God's power. There's a person who is indifferent to everything. He will say God is indifferent to all this. Creation is not outside, creation is inside, here in the mind. It is our own desires that get transposed on God and then returns as theories of creation from God, centering God. That is phenomenal. It can be very disturbing. There is no creation actually. All creation is in the mind. So is creation illusion? No. I'm seeing it. Till I have the mind, creation is very much true. That is why they say it is manifestation. The term used is Maya, not in the sense of illusion, but in the sense of manifestation. Those who take the act of creation as real, there were philosophers who considered act of creation as real. Earlier it was mentioned. But creation itself as illusory. They fail to explain how the act of creation too is not real. The idea is there never was creation. Whether you take creation as real or you take creation as unreal, if you take creation as real, in that case, you're superimposing certain ideas on God, which cannot happen because that way God will become someone, God with desires. God with desires is no God. So creation is illusory. If creation is illusory, then you please explain that why are you focusing on this act of creation? So creation as illusory or as real coming from God is big no. Creation belongs to Maya. Maya, which is neither real nor unreal. We will be having more of it as we proceed. Creation is mere manifestation. It's not real. Creation is never real, never. Conclusion is whatever is Brahman only. The duality that we see is due to ignorance. And it is the ignorant minds like us, subject to Maya, that wants to believe in different theories of creation. This is what Gaudapada says in conclusion. There is no creation. There's only manifestation. That manifestation is the nature of things. We have been created. We are minds. We are ignorant. We are accustomed to seeing duality. So, the ultimate act of creation, we are seeing as an act of creation where there is actually no creation. There's only manifestation. Because Brahman alone remains. Brahman never becomes two. Brahman can never become two. To assert, to explain this whole thing, will come the next mantra of Mandukya Upanishad, not Karika. That is mantra number 7. I'll request you to memorize that. Nanta pragyam na bahis pragyam. That mantra. That is the prana, the vitality of, the vital force of Mandukya Upanishad and Mandukya Karika. The entire work centers that mantra. That describes the nature of Atman, nature of Brahman, nature of consciousness, nature of reality. And then all these things that we discussed will become further clear. Now, whatever we have discussed, it leads us to that mantra. At the same time, that mantra gives power to all this. So our time is up. Thank you so much. I'll just have a look at the chat to see in case there is any question. I don't think there is. In case you have any, no, only we have. No, as usual, there's nothing. In case you have any question, you can also send us at our email ID, ishrkm@gmail.com. Thank you so much.